Most people hear analyst or consultant and picture someone who's drowning in sheets. While that's true for a lot of analysts, my day actually looks a little different. So today I'm going to show you what I do, the messy parts, and talk about why this role is also one of the best paths for career switchers. Hi, I'm Jeff. I started out in healthcare data entry, worked my way up to a business analyst consultant where I am today at a Fortune 5 healthcare company. That title is business analyst consultant. I'm not an outside consultant. This is just an internal title. It's basically just the level after a senior business analyst. So I work on the analytics team within the business operations sides of healthcare analytics, specifically in a PBM industry of Part D, which is for Medicare. So Part D is basically the program that helps seniors pay for their prescriptions. And we manage the data, the systems, various tools behind the drug list, what the data pushes to, that supports a lot of different downstream teams and our department, plus it affects members. So let's go through a day-to-day of what my day looks like and more of a week-to-week because it can vary because of the various ad hoc requests and fires that happen inside our industry because we're in a highly regulatory industry, but I'll get into that more soon. So basically, I wake up early in the morning and I'm still in my pajamas and I just roll over, log into my laptop and then check if there's any overnight emails, pings, and any alerts, messages from people. So basically this is gonna set the tone for the day. So some mornings are peaceful. Usually most mornings are peaceful, but other mornings could be a small fire. And to think about it, there's a great quote from one of my coworkers who's like my counterpart on the client side. He basically said, most of the days we go through just boring, calm, focused work with sudden minutes of spikes of urgency and panic. Healthcare data is high stakes, especially inside a regulatory environment and high impact environment because we submit directly to the government for CMS. CMS is the Center of Medicare and Medicaid Services. Basically, it's the government. And because it's highly regulated, any tiny errors can turn into $1 million issues, literally. So when something breaks, you have to move fast because you don't want teams to escalate it and you want to be proactive. So sometimes you're gonna end up with a fire drill. And for people who are not familiar with fire drills, basically a fire drill is when there's a data issue that impacts compliance, clients, members. So everything stops until it's fixed. And a fire drill, there's gonna be various issues, but specifically a fire drill is one that you have to put out now. Sometimes there's people who think there are fire drills, but it can be pushed off. But then other times there are really important fire drills. There's a story about this. One morning, years back, I got pulled into an urgent meeting. So whenever these fire drills happen, you rally the troops, you'll suddenly get meetings on your invite calendar, and then it's from a random team, or maybe it's somebody that you know, director, or even upper management, and they're escalating an issue. So this was what happened. So there was an issue with the Medicare Part D that we sent, so prescription drug data, and it affected a member negatively. I don't remember, and I can't share the specifics, but I remember hearing about this issue and then starting to dig into the tables. Basically, I was doing root cause analysis. I started to dig into the tables, the queries, validations, and then the error came out that it looked like it came from my process and from my data, so my automated processes. So I remember this specifically. My stomach dropped, and then I was like, I thought, did I just cost the company millions of dollars? And like, why did this pass my validation checks? How come no one else caught this? And then I ran through every sub processes, ran all of the individual queries, looked at the code, and then just started to see that the error was really from there. Every step that I checked, every transformation, every logic layer was because of me. And that was intense because the pressure of working in this highly regulated part of healthcare, one wrong number affects everything. One small issue, not bringing in a certain field that's the mapping for a specific drug that is highly utilized, and then now it's not covered, or it's on a different tier, or it's incorrectly covered, or it has a prior auth when it shouldn't have a prior auth. So then it affects the member experience. And working in the insurance side, especially in business operations, member experience is everything. So luckily, I found out it was an upstream data issue, but I was freaking out. I remember I was sitting at my desk and I was like, I think I had like this shock of like, am I gonna get fired face? Because one of the managers came over and was like, talk to my manager. It's like, can you talk to Jeff? Because it looks like he's freaking out because he thinks he's the one who made this error and cost the company millions. And then we sat down and we realized it wasn't my fault. Luckily. But even then, looking back on it now, this is when I was newer. I wouldn't have gotten fired. It would have been a system issues. Then we would have to go over why it happened, and then fix the systems because it shouldn't be on one person, and there should be multiple checks to make sure that a multi-million-dollar mistake can't go through into the systems. So there should have been validation. So there should have been double checks. But that is a look into what can happen inside my day. And it also shows how serious this work can be, and also why when you move into this type of work, why you can get paid higher than other people, because the sensitivity of the data means a lot more. And this is only one type of problem that I see during the week, and hopefully not during the week. These major escalations don't happen too often. I'm usually going to get lower level escalations, lower level inquiries that don't have to be immediately answered and can go with like on our normal like development life cycle within like a 2-week sprint, and we don't have to address it right away. So basically, this is the analyst side of my job. When something looks wrong, this is when I turn into a detective. Basically, is a drug says it's covered, but it's not. A rule changed and it didn't update in the downstream systems. Now it's affecting customer service or prior authorization. A field has a null value when it should have had values. So what I have to do is, within all our complex systems and how they interconnect, we have internal tools that are not taught in school that you just learn because it's on the job. They're custom made. And then we have custom tools that are built to support various systems. And then we have various data flows that we have to follow to see how they connect into the various systems. And then you have to understand all the cross-functional teams, how they connect, who to reach out to follow up inside some of those inquiries. So that's also part of my job, is I have to follow where the data moves from system to system to figure out what went wrong. Basically, what went wrong, why did it go wrong, how did we fix it, and then addressing what are we doing to prevent it happening in the future. So I have to be proactive in how I communicate that so that we can alleviate the fears, and also let know all the downstream teams, stakeholders know that we're working on this. Inquiries are what I spend more of my time on, but that is not even the part that I spend the most time on. What I do mostly nowadays is I do deep work building tools and basically what people would call shadow IT in slang, right? It would be the more technical side of the business that IT doesn't like, but we have it because we have urgent issues and we need to move fast. So most of my week is not fire drills, but answering inquiries like I mentioned, and just digging into what things, and then communicating, and then making sure the fixes are in place. But mostly I'm now developing tools. I'm engineering systems and developing tools and full solutions. So that's not within my title, but it is within my job responsibilities. You wouldn't think that a business analyst consultant would be developing tools. I support and enhance the various small tools that our department, our sister team uses, and the ones that feed data into downstream systems. So some are models, some are dashboards, templates, reporting tools. There's a lot of various things, but all they're there to do is to automate manual processes and save the company time and money. Healthcare, unlike tech, moves a lot slower. So when I first came into the company, you would think that there would be a clean back end for me to work in. When I came from a smaller mid-sized company, I had a clean data warehouse where the tables were clean. I could merge. They were still complex and how I would have to get the data. But then when I came here, we had to support our own types of databases. We had to load our own databases, clean the data, and We did have backends for various systems, but it wasn't the entire picture that we needed. So we had to merge and create systems and load healthcare, and from the government and from like various vendors, it's going to come in various file formats. So you had to be able to ingest that. And when I first came into this, Access was one of the things that was heavily used and is still heavily used. And yes, it's used a lot to a lot of people's surprise. There's a simple reason for this. IT projects can take months to even years to finish. You have to have funding, you have to have a big budget, you need approvals, you need meetings with project managers, developers, you have to bring in the SMEs, which is subject matter experts, plus various business users who use it. Then you need to get the requirements, you have to go through UA testing to validate everything works, and then you have this long convoluted process for trying to get these software solutions. And then you're going to build out software solutions, and then you need to build out the initial MVP. You have to have a proof of concept before that, and then you have your MVP, and the MVP is like your minimal viable product with the minimal features, but then you need to solve for the business problems, but it doesn't have some of the features you need. So later down the line, you're still building some of these tools to make up for some of the gaps that are not in the software. So healthcare operations doesn't have time to move that slow for various manual processes that take up a lot of time, but might not get the funding or the prioritization if we took it the formal IT route. So guess what? They bring me in to build solutions ourselves. So, like I said, Access is included in the Microsoft license, and it lets semi-technical and technical users build and prototype fast. Is it ideal? No. But is it powerful? Yes, especially if you know how to code within it. And then if you connect it to do the heavy lifting into a SQL backend. And you don't even need to do that depending on the data set. So in part of my job, I work as a full developer where I meet with stakeholders, I gather requirements, I design the solution, I build it, I fix the bugs, I release updates, I support the user, the maintenance, and then make new features and enhancements. So it's like I'm a one-person engineering team that's inside the business, on the business side, to cover all the things that can't go the formal business IT route. That's what I spend the majority of the time doing, which I love. I love building stuff. And then we have a more modernized part of my role that I'm starting to lean into more. So the modernization is I'm leaning more into AI, Python, and then doing more things in SQL. So part of my week now is focused on modernization, moving from legacy tools into modernizing various tools. So moving processes that used to be just in specifically Access entirely into SQL Server, into the backend, building out Python and learning how to develop Python full stack Python applications, and then integrating and exploring ways to use AI models to help with validations, documentation, and all the various processes and unique business problems that we have. So, and on top of that, also doing internal AI training to keep up to date as a developer on the business side. So I get to go on the technical trainings and keep up on the front end of where we're moving, and then get to experiment with all the various tools, which is pretty fun. And that is basically how I spend most of my day. And then communicating with our analysts, our pharmacists, our senior analysts, leadership into issues. And then they also come to me for technical help as well. So they'll come to me whenever there's something breaks in one of the tools, or they just need advice on how to approach various projects. So that's my more consultant route. And also the consultant route comes in on some of our various internal tools to bring me in to speak on this specific part of the business, because I know it better than most people because I'm touching very specific parts. So that's a majority of my day. And what's nice is I get to stay in my PJs and drink coffee and just hang out, instead of having, when I was in the office, having to be in business casual besides casual Friday all the time. It's a lot nicer. I don't have to commute and stay in traffic for like 45 minutes there and back. And I miss seeing my coworkers on a daily basis, but you get used to it, and I wouldn't have it any other way now being at home. And one of the things I learned, and one of the things I wish someone told me earlier, is You don't need to be perfect to become a healthcare analyst. Just the way that you break into this is you do need some healthcare domain experience, and you just need to get that in any way. Some people I know became a business analyst by being a farm tech, working in customer service, member services, working a lower level job, and then transitioning up. I worked in as the temp data entry, worked in the various departments. I got to learn how healthcare worked and got the healthcare experience that way. Became a benefits analyst, eventually became the data analyst. Then I transitioned into this company and worked my way up. Medical group into the payer insurance side. That is probably the best route that I would recommend, is figure out a way to get experience so that you could get hired within healthcare, because you have the technical skills or you're learning technical skills. Now you just need the domain knowledge, and then there's various ways of doing that. If you want to break into healthcare analytics and want my personal help, so apply to the Healthcare Automation Lab. I'm working with a small group of people currently, helping them break into analytics, and it's free at the moment so that I can understand the obstacles that people are facing today, so I can get the experience and actually get people into healthcare right now. So if that's your goal, click the link in the description below, apply to the community, and if you get accepted, I hope to see you inside. And then until then, see you later and query responsibly.